What does it really take to challenge an entire industry, especially one that's been doing things the same way for like 100 years? Well, today we're diving into the story of a company that did exactly that. A a purple branded force of nature that has totally flipped the script on banking for a whole continent. So let's get into how they pulled it off.
Okay, let's just start with a number that is, honestly, it's staggering. Over 80 million customers. To put that in perspective, that's more people that live in Germany. So how on earth does a company, a bank of all things, that was only founded about a decade ago, get that big that fast? Well, to really get it, you've got to understand the world they were born into.
For decades, this was just the reality of banking in Latin America. I mean, the whole system was run by just a handful of giant, old school banks. And sure, they were making a ton of money, but for the average person, it was a nightmare. We're talking crazy high fees for everything, endless, frustrating paperwork, and don't even get me started on their digital apps. And the worst part, millions of people were just completely left out of the system. No access at all. And this is the question that changes everything. Instead of trying to patch up this broken, ancient system, what if? What if you could just build a bank from scratch? For today, for the digital age. No physical branches, no creaky old technology, no bureaucracy. Just a smartphone in your hand and a mission to actually serve the customer. That, right there, was the big idea behind Nubank. All right, Section 1, Latin America's banking problem. So to really get why Nubank's strategy was so brilliant, we have to zoom in on the mess they were walking into. Let's take a closer look at this old guard of finance. And what's so wild is how all of these problems fed into each other. You had a few giant banks controlling the whole market. So why would they bother lowering fees or making things better? They had no reason to. All their processes were slow and manual, designed for them, not for you. And their apps, oh man, they felt like something out of the dark ages. But this wasn't just annoying. It created this massive group of people who were totally underserved, totally fed up, and just waiting for something better to come along. Okay, Section 2, enter Nubank, the challenger. And right into this mess of frustration steps our hero. This is all about how Nubank looked at this broken market and didn't see a problem. They saw maybe the biggest opportunity in modern finance. And this right here is so important. From day one, you have to understand Nubank wasn't just another bank. It was really a tech company with a mission. Things like democratize access and mobile first, those weren't just slick marketing terms. No, they were the absolute core of their entire strategy, designed from the ground up to completely pull the rug out from under the old guys. And you can see their playbook laid out so clearly here. I mean, it was brilliant. They didn't try to boil the ocean and do everything at once. Nope. They started with one killer product, a simple, no-fee credit card that people absolutely loved. Once they earned that trust, then they started adding more pieces, digital accounts, loans, insurance, slowly but surely building out this entire financial world and taking that model from one country to the next. This quote, this really gets to the heart of it all. It shows you it was never just about being cheaper. It was a crusade. A fight against all the complexity and the confusion that the old banks thrived on. Everything they built, every single feature, was measured against this one idea: empowering people. Okay, Section 3, inside Nubank's digital engine. So let's get into the how, right? How does Nubank actually pull this off? Well, the magic isn't really magic. It's in their technology and their business model, which are just built completely differently from any traditional bank you've ever seen. This is the secret sauce. It's their growth engine, what you could call the product flywheel. And it works like this. Step 1, they get you in the door with that simple, irresistible, no-fee credit card. Step 2, once you're a customer, they offer you an amazing free digital account that becomes the hub for all your money. And then, step 3, once you're hooked and you trust them, that's when they can offer you other things you might need, like a loan or insurance. It is a genius, super low-cost way to get customers and grow with them. A cycle that the big, clunky old banks just can't copy. And this comparison just lays it all out, doesn't it? Nubank was built from the ground up like a modern tech company, not a bank from the 1980s. So while legacy banks are drowning in the cost of physical branches, Nubank's cost to serve a customer is practically zero. While old banks are buried in paperwork for a loan, Nubank is using AI to make a decision in seconds. This isn't a small difference. It lets them move way faster, charge way less, and just deliver a product that's night and day better. All right, section 4, the conquest of a continent. So once they built this powerful digital engine, Nubank wasn't about to just sit back and enjoy their success in Brazil. No way. They set their sights on the whole continent.
And you can literally see their strategy playing out on this chart. Brazil, that's the home base, right? The massive established core of the empire. But then you look at Mexico. That's the next big growth engine, and it's exploding. And then Colombia, that's the new frontier, where they're just starting to run the exact same playbook that worked so well before. So you might be asking, why these specific countries? Well, it wasn't random at all. It was incredibly strategic. Each market was handpicked because it looked almost exactly like Brazil did when they started. Tons of young people with smartphones, not many people with bank accounts, and old banks charging insane fees. It's the perfect recipe for disruption. But, the story is far from over. Section 5, the future, opportunity versus risk. Because with any company that grows this fast, the future is full of massive potential, but also some pretty big challenges. So let's look at both sides of the coin, the bull case and the bear case. So the bull case, the optimistic view, is really compelling. Think about it. They have over 80 million customers, but most of them are only using one or two products. The potential to get those same people to use Nubank for loans, for insurance, for investments, it's absolutely massive. If they can just replicate their success in Mexico and Colombia and become the one super app for all things money, the growth from here could be astronomical.
But you gotta look at the risks, and they are very real. This is the bear case. Operating in Latin America means you're always dealing with economic ups and downs, political instability, stuff that affects whether people can pay back their loans. And of course, their success has put a giant target on their back. Other fintechs are jumping in, the competition is getting fierce, and you can bet the regulators are watching their every move.
So when you put it all together, the big picture is pretty clear. The best way to think about Nubank isn't really as a bank. It's a high-growth tech company that just happens to be in the business of finance. And just like all the great tech stories, that means it's a story of really high risk, but also potentially even higher reward. And all of this leaves us with one big final question. Nubank has already proved it can attract tens of millions of customers. That part's done. But can a digital-first model built on tech and transparency really truly unseat a century of established finance for good? The battle for the future of money in Latin America is happening right now, and Nubank is right at the front. We'll just have to wait and see how it all plays out.